Good afternoon, everyone. This is Cindy DeKine from the Delaware State Housing Authority. We're just going to give a few more minutes for people to tune in. Okay, Karen, I see you're there. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm having some slow connectivity, so I might shut my video off just in case, but I'm here.
Yeah, well, I'm having audio issues, so I have to call in. Anyway, long story. But welcome everybody to the our meeting today. We are recording the meeting so that we can post it to our website. I just want to welcome you. My name is Cindy DeKine, and I work at the Delaware State Housing Authority. And our meeting, our public information meeting today is about the Recovery Housing Program, and that is a HUD program that's funded through our Community Development Block program that we're going to talk a little bit more about. But it is a partnership program with the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. So we have a couple folks on the line today from them, and they're going to do a little discussion about the recovery program and how it works in their division. And then we're going to talk a lot about the housing part and how you apply for these funds. So with that, I am going to get going. So I want to welcome you. It's great to see everybody, and we sure hope that we get lots of applications and you find out what you're looking for today from this meeting. Again, my name is Cindy DeKine from Delaware State Housing Authority. Karen, want to introduce yourself and any staff that's there today on the line?
Sure. My name is Karen Records. I'm Chief of Social Determinants for the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. I believe I saw Jessica Ryan on here. I just can't see I can't see the list of the people that they're on, but if anyone's with DSAM, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Ryan. I'm the Deputy Chief of Social Determinants, and I work directly under Karen.
Thank you. All right, same is true for the DSHA staff. I know Michelle is on the line. I'm not sure about anybody else. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Statham, and I work with DSHA's Policy and Planning Division as a supportive housing planner.
Great. Anybody else I can't see from DSHA on the line want to introduce themselves? Okay, if not, we're going to keep going. So if you would not mind, if you could just go into the chat and put your name, the agency or the entity that you're with, and your email address, that would be really helpful into the chat. That way we have a record of who came to the meeting today. So please put your name in the chat and your email address. Thank you. All right, so what are our goals today? Our goal is to make new partnerships with our nonprofits and service providers. We're going to talk about permanent recovery housing with this funding and DSAM's partnership. So we're going to talk about the program in general. We're going to talk about development, because it is a very complicated process, and providing services, which is also very complicated. And what our real goal is to increase the supply of recovery housing in Delaware. That's what we want to do with this funding, and this is what we want to do with this program. So where did this funding come from? The Recovery Housing Program, again, was supported by Congress in 2018. So they funded 2 years of funding, and we received the funding at the end of 2020. And then we put out a NOFA in 2021 for our first 2 rounds of funding. So, but it was in response to the opioid epidemic. I'm sure you all know that Delaware has one of the highest rates of overdose deaths in the country per capita. And so it was really important on the federal side and the state side to start creating more recovery housing, something that's permanent, that's going to be here for the long term for Delawareans. So Delaware was actually an eligible state, and we received our first funding in 2020. So recovery housing is an intervention program designed to address the needs of recovery from substance abuse disorder, which I guess is SUD as an acronym, for safe and healthy environments while supplying recovery and peer supports. And peer supports is very important to us and to this program. Recovery housing is an essential, again, an essential part of the treatment and recovery and continuum of care. It provides for safe and healthy, free living environments, and again, is centered on that peer support. It promotes and connects to a mutual support group and recovery to support services to reduce isolation and relapse. Again, it was signed into law in 2019. We got our first funding in FY 20 and 21, and we did 1 round. And in FY 22 and FY 23, we received more money. We got $1.2 and $1.3 million to create some more recovery housing. So we're very excited about that. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Karen to talk about the substance abuse disorder and what DSAM is doing at a glance.
Okay. So again, thank you everybody for your attendance. In previous years, we hadn't provided this type of information. So I just wanted to just like update some of our, what it is that our division does as it relates to substance use disorder. So what you're looking at is a slide actually from our data from 2022. So we already know that it's about outdated. This is about like a little over 6 months out of data that's reconciled. So last year you could see that we had contracted 36 recovery housing beds. Our X waiver has to do with those that are able to prescribe MOUD therapies, of that being 483. We have Medicaid for addiction treatment locations, 29 locations. We served over 17,911 persons that either didn't have insurance or were underinsured, and contracting with 49 providers statewide with through the Delaware Treatment Referral Network, getting an average of 900 referrals weekly into our substance use services. So just a reminder of persons, if you don't already know, our division is per Delaware code, the single state agency that addresses adults with for any type of behavioral health, mental health, behavioral health issues. So that's why we're able to capture all of this information as a administration agency. Next slide. So for purposes of this grant, we wanted to just share with you, for DSAM, we have adopted the National Association of Recovery Residences. Delaware itself is in the process of having its own affiliation. Presently, we contract out for our contracted providers with another state to certify our contracted recovery residences are in compliance with the National Association of Recovery Residences. Our present contracts are under levels 2 through level 4. Level 4, as an FYI, is also, you may hear it as being ASAM 3.1, and that is because it's a Medicaid billable service under ASAM. So for the purposes of this particular grant, all of our contracted providers that under NAR level 2 through 4 qualify. Next slide. So our target population, it's pretty much any adults age 18 or over that present for a need of substance with a substance use disorder and qualify for the need of recovery residences. NAR level 4, as I said before, is that's ASAM 3.1. That is an actual medical necessity treatment-based assessment for that actual level of care. So that actually does require a little bit more assessment to qualify to get into that program. But generally, it's anyone. We do have subpopulation focus as it relates to those that are justice involved. Transition age use, so that's like between age 18 and 25. Intravenous drug users, pregnant women, parents with dependent children, veterans or LGBTQ plus population. And I notice I have justice involved twice. I'll have to make a correction. So anybody, any of those populations, you just make sure that your agencies have some type of waitlist policy that you comply with, or and make sure that you prioritize those identified high-risk populations, which for the most part all our contracted providers do, because you are already under contract with us, because those are general requirements with us to be contracted. Next slide. Our client referral pathway. So DSAM, back in 2000, I want to say 19 at this part, we launched a Delaware Treatment Referral Network. It is a cloud-based platform, basically one-stop shop to be able to refer and receive referrals for behavioral health treatment services. Anyone that is contracted with us as a recovery resident, you are required to use the Delaware Treatment Referral Network. This is through the Open Beds platform. And you are to not only be a referrer, but also a receiver of referrals. I think that's all that I have.
Thank you very much, Karen. Your statistics, when I was reading it the other day, you know I'm speaking to the choir on this call today, but it's just amazing. You know, so many referrals, and that's a large population of our state, actually, that you are treating. So it's amazing, and we're so happy to be able to be in a partnership with you guys. Just for your FYI, everybody, last year we were able to close on 2 permanent recovery housings, both in Sussex County. One was in Seaford for women, and one is in Harbison for men. They were both fully renovated, fully accessible, sprinkled, and they're fully occupied. And we're so happy about that, everything is going according to plan, and we are all helping more folks in Delaware with this disorder. So kudos to everybody who's on the line who was part of that. And we're really looking forward to doing additional homes here in Delaware. So let me just go back to the federal money that we have available. It is part of the Community Development Block Grant funding that we receive annually. Sometimes Congress doesn't know where to put some of this money, and that's where they ended up putting it. So it's very similar. It has a lot of the regulations of Community Development Block Grant, but is not quite CDBG. But there are things that are like CDBG, and that is to meet that national objective to benefit low and moderate income persons, that it has to be an eligible activity, which recovery is, and there's got to be a connection to the program purpose. So I think what our 2 agencies have come up with meets all of those requirements of the federal government. So let's talk about what can you use our funding for and what kind of terms are we talking about. So acquisition is the biggest use of the funding. So that means acquiring the property from, a seller, and it has to be up to the appraised value. That's how much we will pay for that. And then the rehab cost. So because it's the state and federal, will be funded property with state and federal money, we require it to be fully accessible, because there's people who have disabilities and they need to be able to, and their family and friends and even employees need to be able to enter and be able to use the property. We also have renovation standards, so we just don't want to spit in a lick. We have standards for construction, and they have to be fully sprinkled. And so these were things that were learning experiences for the two nonprofits that we funded last time. And, we want to make sure that you all know that in advance now, that these are things that you might have to deal with. So we can also pay for pre-development costs. So we're going to require an environmental, which means, is there lead-based paint in the house? Is there asbestos? What kind of cleanup needs to be done? We want to make sure they're very acceptable homes. We'll pay for the cleanup if necessary, but so that is a pre-development cost, having that phase 1 done, an appraisal. We'll pay for a capital needs assessment, architectural design and oversight. Super helpful to have an architect involved from the very beginning, even though you're not talking about a huge project. It's a small little house, but it's very helpful for to you to have an architect to be there from the beginning to help you design the accessibility correctly and to do any, there was some movement of some of the rooms the last 2 times to make things larger or move them around for accessibility. So having an architect on board from the beginning is very helpful. And then we will pay for the sprinkler costs, obviously. So we'll pay for all the closing costs and settlement costs. All this stuff comes out of our grant, as well as an operating reserve. So that is for future expenses. So we will take that out of the grant and put it in an account, and it'll be used, available for you in the future. So what are the terms to this grant? Well, it's 0 interest. That's a pretty good deal. It's, again, eligible up to the appraised value after rehab. Acquisition and rehab, it'll all be done through a draw process. So again, something to know, you need a line of credit. You have to pay for everything in advance, and then we will reimburse you. It is a 30-year grant with deed restrictions, so we're going to have our restrictions in there as well as DSAM's restriction in the grant agreement. And then there's some regulatory requirements and monitoring. So we'll be monitoring you, not for the services, but we're going to make sure you maintain the property for the 30 years. We'll be doing inspections. And there is some requirements on the resident side that they are income eligible. So that's a quick look there. Again, the properties have to be fully accessible, so that's going to be renovation. They have to be fully sprinkled. We would like you to use sustainable products as much as possible. We do have design and construction standards that we want you to look at and have the architect look at. So if there's some kitchen appliances and so forth, we do have some recommendations for those kind of things. The same thing with windows, anything energy efficient, we do have requirements for that. And then a capital needs assessment. What does the project need? What does the house need for renovations? So those are things that are very important, but that we will pay for, but are required. The other thing that's super important to us and to DSAM, our partner, is knowing what your operating budget is. And so we're going to require you, when you apply, to give us 2 different budgets. One to operate the project, to operate the house, and one is the service budget. So we want to know, like, what type of maintenance expenses are there going to be on an annual basis? What is the water and sewer costs? What are the electric costs? What are the exterminating? You have to do an audit. Maybe there's going to be taxes, definitely will be property insurance. So we want to know those kind of things. We want you to really think about that. But then there's the other side of the budget, the service budget. How much is the case management going to be and the peer support? Will there be transportation expenses, food expenses, any kind of drug testing, all kinds of miscellaneous? So we want you to think about that and give us the budget, but also tell us how are you going to pay for those things, because our money doesn't pay for those things. So where are you going to get that money from? Obviously, you're going to most likely have a contract with DSAM, but you're going to still need other additional sources to pay for some of those expenses. So this round, we changed our application to pretty much the same application that we use for our other funding of different types of special needs housing. So here is the link for our application. And so the first thing is a notice of funding availability. We want you, if you're thinking of applying, you need to read that. It details all the federal and state requirements. It tells you what types of recovery projects are eligible, how much we have available, what are the application requirements and deadlines, again, talking about the sources and uses of funding, and our scoring and ranking, because as all the applications come in, we will have a committee set up and we will score and rank your projects. So make sure you review that NOFA before you even start the application process. The application is basically 3 parts. We have application part 1, and that is a Word version. It asks you a lot of questions about the project, and it's a signed copy. You can do an electronic signature on that, or you can do a hard copy signature. Part 2 is an Excel cash flow. So it's got 2 tabs, one for the settlement sources and uses, and then one for that operating budget that we just talked about. And then the third part of the application is all the exhibits that we're going to require. A lot of them are narratives, but a lot is supported documentation. So we are going to require a hard copy and electronic copy on a USB thumb drive. So we want the hard copy to be in one bound folder or binder, indexed with all the different exhibits. And I think there's like 14 exhibits. And we want the electronic copy to look as similar as possible to the hard copy. So that is a little different than what we did last time, but very similar to what we always do with our other housing programs. So this might be a little different. We hope it actually makes more sense than the last one did, and it may be a little bit extra paperwork. The narratives for the checklist are very important, so make sure you answer every question that's on there, and add anything that's additional about your project. Applications will be accepted statewide. Last time we had a Sussex County preference, but this time it's all statewide because the need is great throughout the state. Again, we just talked about a hard copy and a USB. Subpopulations or target populations may be selected, and you'll see that everything that Karen mentioned, we have like a little box for you to check on that part 1. We want that operating and services budget. COVID policies are still important, so we want that. And most importantly, your outcomes. You know, how does your program work? You know, what are the outcomes that you hope for? How are you going to follow the clients after they leave your property? And we also have the CDBG requirements. These are all those federal ones. This is just a small list here. There's disbursement timelines. If you're thinking of acquiring a property that already has residents in them, because it's a lease property, there's relocation requirements, which will pay for the relocation. But that is a federal requirement of the program and something that you really need to understand. It's very complicated relocation. So, you know, really think about that. if you're thinking about acquiring a property that already has residents. There's Section 3, civil rights and fair housing, very important to us. Lead-based paint, which we talked about earlier, that's why we have the environmental. We have to do our own review on the environmental, plus a phase 1. And so there's some CDBG requirements here that are more outlined in our application. Okay, so we did talk about review, scoring, and preliminary awards. After the applications are received, again, there are scoring categories and point ranges on each one of the criteria. So I want you to really look at that scoring area, really read everything, make sure you answer every question. And again, if you have other items that you want to add that make sense, please go ahead and do so. The more is fine. The less is not good. And so we will be considering how you answer these questions and some of the documentation that you submit. So collaboration of providers is very much encouraged. Some of the things that we want to tell you about that you may not realize, but every county and municipality has their own zoning requirements. And we in housing call them land use. And so you want to be aware of the zoning requirements. Each municipality has they may want you to go through their process to purchase that house. So make sure you figure out what is the zoning. If the property is already zoned correctly, that's great. There still may be some other land use requirements of that municipality that you need to know about before you even go into a sales contract. The fire marshal, there's one in every county, and some of the municipalities have their own, like the City of Wilmington and City of Dover. And we like to say they go rogue a little bit. The fire marshal can, your architect might know what the law requires for fire safety, but the fire marshal can add more stuff. And they can also stop your rehab. So make sure that you know these things in advance wherever you're looking for a property. If it's in the City of Dover, make sure, your folks look into the City of Dover fire marshal first and go, hey, we're thinking about acquiring this piece of property. What kind of requirements do you have? Know those things in advance. DSAM, contract amendments, there is an opportunity with some current recovery houses that are under contract that are possible for you to acquire. And so that is something that, they are encouraging. I don't know, Karen, if you want to step in here and talk more about.
So majority of you as recovery resident owned agencies lease your homes. So this is like one of the only times that you have available for funding to either to be able to purchase your own home. So whereby you don't have to lease anymore. So that's where it gets into the part where Cindy was talking about in terms of relocating clients, because that would be an issue, and we would help you as much as we can, just like DSHA would help assist with whatever the needs are. But also, if you do own your homes that you're under contract with, they might need rehab for accessibility issues. This is one of the few times that you have dollars available, because our DSAM dollars cannot generally pay for capital costs. So this is why this type of partnership is so beneficial for the state, because they're able to cover the things that our funding can't. Likewise, they can't pay for services and we can. So we strongly encourage that these funds really be looked at for existing contracted providers that have you the opportunity to purchase your own homes, so you're no longer bound by the lease of a landlord. And then also vice versa, you have sustainability in those homes, because at any given time period, landlords can say, oh, we're not renewing your lease, and then people don't have anywhere to go. And I know that's happened recently with some providers choosing to let go of their homes. So this is good timing as it relates to agencies being able to have the ability to acquire their own properties.
Thanks, Karen. And she'll be available for questions later. Some properties may have other lenders involved. It's a possibility, or there could be some subsidy commitments to that project that you want to acquire. So if that's the case, you want to make sure everybody knows, this deal, the other lenders or other subsidy commitment agencies are part of this transaction when you acquire the property. One other thing is that you will need counsel, meaning an attorney that's registered in Delaware who's going to be your title attorney. You can't have anybody out of state, and they need to understand that DSHA as well as DSAM have our own documents and will be part of the settlement. And so that's also something new. A lot of these attorneys are just little real estate attorneys that do little single family type settlements, and this is a tad bit bigger than that. So they just need, and they did fine, but it was a little different for them. We will take the lead, our counsel will take the lead in the settlement, but then we turn it over to the title attorney on settlement day. Some things that we want you to consider: projects should be 10 beds or less, and why is that? Well, under fair housing in the state of Delaware, 10 beds are allowed as a group home. Once you get past 10 beds, then you've got to go through that land use process with the local municipality. Both of our previous, our grantees from the last 2 years went through the process, and they probably would not do that again. They had really good reasons because you want to help as many people as possible. And if you buy a property that can do more than 10, why couldn't you? Well, you can. You're welcome to do that, but we want you to try and stay within the 10 beds or less, because NIMBYism's out there. They are all on the line here, and they can tell you it was pretty hectic going through all of that land use and having to justify to the neighbors, having extra beds. So we really want 10 beds or less this time. The seller, any projects that you're thinking of purchasing and acquiring, that seller needs to understand that this settlement could be 6 to 12 months or more, depending on if there are issues. So remember, there's got to be an environmental done, there's got to be a capital needs assessment done, maybe some architectural plans, and our grantees from last time, they really lucked out because their sellers were not in a big hurry. So, think about yourself. If you're going to sell your own home, you expect to be out of there within 30 to 60 days. Well, these homes are going to take a little bit longer to get to settlement. So make sure you tell the seller up front that this is a federal program, it's also a state program, and that it could take, 6 to 12 months. But we will pay them. Don't worry about that. Renovations and rehab, they have delays. Again, there could be building inspectors, there could be the fire marshal, there could be other agencies that are involved in the renovation, depending on the municipality. The city of Wilmington and the city of Dover, they have inspectors, building inspectors. So just be alerted that there may be some delays on when you're doing your rehab. Municipalities and other agencies, they may have an approval or permitting process. Again, something that normally you probably wouldn't even go through on a little regular real estate settlement, but because you know, we're talking the federal and state money, and there's more renovations and accessibility in here and sprinklers. They may have some more permitting processes that you normally wouldn't have to go through. And acquiring recovery projects that have current service contracts are fine. I know there's a couple that are for sale that are already recovery houses, so that's great. There's already contracts on them on the DSAM side, so that's probably a preference if DSAM has one. So that would be fine. And if you have questions on those particular projects that have current service projects, Karen, I would probably defer to Karen every time on those, but I can definitely take questions, you know, during this application process, but I'll probably get the answer from Karen on any of them. So we did talk a little bit earlier about the monitoring. So we will be doing annual inspections on your property. We have inspectors ourselves that will go out and we'll give you lots of notice. You know, whether the residents are there, we really don't care. We're just looking at the physical part of the property, making sure it's being maintained properly. We do have asset management requirements, so we do require insurance. If you have to pay the taxes, you know, we're just like a bank. We're going to set up escrows and so forth. Residents have to be income certified, so we do have a certification form. A lot of your clients aren't working, but maybe some are. So you do have to verify their income. They have to be below 80% of area median income, and we will have those charts for you. And residents can stay at these properties up to 24 months, and it can be non-consecutive. So if like they're there for 3 months and they leave, and they can come back, you know, if something happens for up to 24 months. So those are things that you'll have to keep as monitoring those clients as well. The process and timelines, we're having our interest meeting right now. We will be glad to take technical assistance meetings. So if you're interested in applying, you know, please contact me and we'll have a technical assistance meeting about the application, answer any of your questions. Right now, we want you to be looking for properties, determining your target population, and then applying to DSHA on August 11th. August 11th at 3 o'clock. We have 2 different places you can apply, in Dover at 18 the Green, excuse me, and our City of Wilmington office in the State Building. Either one. Anything that comes in after 3, we can't accept. So once we get your application, we're going to look at it for threshold. We will score and rank it ourselves, and then we will have a review committee with our partners, and they will score and rank it, and then we will award our grantees. We'll do a preliminary award so that you have something to take to the real estate, the sellers, real estate person and attorney, and then we'll start the settlement process, which is, you know, a lot of stuff to do, but we will start that. And then once we go to settlement, you'll be under construction to do all of the sprinklers and all the accessibility and then the other rehab. And then you get your permission to occupy or your certificate to occupy from the municipalities, and then you can start renting up. And you have to use the DTRAN open bed system. The support services, you know, again, before we go to contract or settlement with you all, we're going to make sure that you have those contracts in place. And then we will do our ongoing monitoring, and we hope for wonderful, positive outcomes. So if you have any questions, I put Dawn Favors job on here as well, but mainly I am the contact for now. So if you have any questions, you want a technical assistance meeting, you have a project in mind, you haven't put in a sales contract yet, please call me, email me for an appointment. I'm very much available. to have any technical assistance go over our application, talk about your house that you have in mind, anything like that. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions that you have for us at DSHA or for DSAM. You are also welcome to email me any questions. You can also email Karen Records at DSAM on the contract side. So I'm going to open it up for any questions. I don't know, can anybody see any questions in the chat? Because I can't see the chat either.
Hi, Cindy, it's Michelle. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, that's fine. Very quiet audience today. This is a conversation. Go ahead, I hear somebody. Mm-hmm.
Do you just mind repeating the total amount available for awards for this phase?
We have $2.3 million available, but what's available to each individual project is up to the appraised value plus rehab costs. So, you know, one project, you know, 2.3 million. I mean, I suppose that could come in, but we're looking to fund 2 or 3 projects, you know, we hope, with that 2.3 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cindy, this is Tom Rourke with Sun Behavioral. And we are considering the development of some temporary recovery housing projects. And the question I had is, does an entity have to be a not-for-profit to qualify, or will a proprietary company be able to qualify?
Yeah, the CDBG program does require the nonprofits to be the entity that purchases the property and is the one that's on our deed restriction. We do encourage partnerships so that if you are the service provider, maybe you could partner with a nonprofit who would be the purchaser of the property. And that's really to maintain the restriction on the property for 30 years and to have the nonprofit be that entity because they're mission-based and, you know, we wanted a nonprofit to be the one that owns it for the long term.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Well, again, I will put my my email address up here again, so you can, you know, if you think about any more questions, or if you have a project in mind, you know, please call us so that we can give you some technical assistance on your application and answer any of your questions. And the same thing with DSAM. If you have any questions, I'll make sure that on the service side that you get in touch with Karen and her staff, because that's vital for these projects to work. Is we can pay for all that capital, but we can't pay for the services. And I'm looking forward to some really good applications. I hope we get, you know, it would be great to get 10, but I don't think that'll happen. But if we can get 3, 4, 5 applications, that's great. We certainly need them. And we want them to be a permanent recovery housing. The tenants are transitional, but we want it to be permanent so that it's always there for this purpose. So.
I put in our chat any questions you might have. You can go directly to dsam_housing@delaware.gov. It's an email resource box. Our entire unit has access to, so it just prevents from individual emails getting lost.
Oh, great. Thank you, Karen. Okay, well, I'll be happy to stay here for a few minutes. And if you guys if you don't have any questions, you're welcome to leave the meeting. But I'm happy to stay here for, 5-10 more minutes and answer any questions. But everybody else is excused. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Cindy and all. This is Deborah from Impact Life. Thanks so much.
Oh, nice to see you. I see Don has his camera on. Hi, Don. How are you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Another round. Here we go.
Yeah, you had a long spiel. That was good. And
Yeah, I think
where
what
did
you
we
guys
go?
told me,
Where
like,
did we?
make sure
where do we
you
go?
tell people next time. They
Oh,
better
I
know
won't fall
about it.
asleep. What is the application on the website?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Let me go back to that slide. Here is the, oops. I don't know why that's not moving. Oh, here we go. Okay, here is the crazy application link. If you go to www.destatehousing.com and then you go to other programs under CDBG, it's down below. You have to scroll it. Did you see it, Deborah, yet? Okay, good.
I have to unmute. I did see, and I downloaded, so far I've just downloaded the NOFA.
Okay.
But yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot different this time. You guys give me good feedback. So we decided to switch it to what we normally do. And even though it's longer and requires more, it makes more sense.
I appreciate it. And, it's really helpful to know about the differences, in terms of the 3 parts and having the thumb drive and the paper copy and where to go and getting it to you by 3 p.m. on the 13th. Very
Okay,
helpful
yeah,
to know.
by the 11th, August 11th.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Today's the
August
13th.
11th.
Yes, August 11th. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you guys have any properties in mind, again, just email me and we can do a technical assistance meeting.
Fantastic. I'm sure we will be. Don, I don't know about you, but I think definitely Lauren and I will be for sure.
We'll be busy, Deb.
All right, Don.
Take care.
You too. Bye, everybody.
So long.
Bye, thank you. Looks like it's just you and me, Karen.
Probably stop recording at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll stop sharing first of all. And go to the record button. Boop. 49 minutes.